When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting, the A-team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night, download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello everybody and welcome to Rewind to Raw. It's John Pollock and forget about me. The reason everyone is tuning in tonight. It is the returning Wai Ting who is back. He is here in Canada. I can confirm. Wai, it's been too long without your wonderful voice to accompany us coming off of a 3-hour edition of Raw.
I'm back, John. And, Mondays just aren't the same without this. So, in a way, I'm actually, it's kind of nice to be back into routine. But, before we start off, I wanted to give you a huge thank you, along with all the other contributors to Post Wrestling over the past month. Davey, Braden, Nate, Brian, Andrew Thompson, of course, on the website. Everybody else that I'm not even, if I didn't mention you, I apologize, but you're...
Phil, let's not forget about Phil.
Fair Talk, great job, of course, on the post show. Errol Hawani, I've listened to almost everything, and the site has never been better. So, John, it did cross my mind. Maybe I could stay a little bit longer, but nonetheless, I'm at least here for this Monday.
Okay, you say maybe I could have stayed a bit longer. You were there for 3 weeks.
3 weeks, 2 of which was sort of with you. I guess 10 days was with you.
Yeah.
So the first week was really a bit dominated by Wrestle Kingdom and a lot of wrestling stuff. But yeah, this was probably one of the longer stretches I've been actually away from home and away from routine.
Were you at the end? Were you ready to come home, or were you saying to yourself, I could stick around here longer? Because, dude, I was done. And listen, I love Japan. I had a wonderful time. This was a fantastic trip. But for me, I was ready to go home at the end. I was also, I'd been away. This was the longest I had ever been away from Max. So it was a different circumstances, but nonetheless, yeah. I was ready to go home by the end.
I totally understand. Yeah, if I was away from my loved ones in a foreign country for that long, I think I'd feel the same way. But I was lucky enough to have my girlfriend with me. We were vacationing throughout Japan for much of my second leg of that trip. So,
did you do anything but eat?
Yeah, eating was definitely much of it. I did definitely do some other sightseeing. We saw some really interesting.
These were majestic pictures. I mean, it didn't even look like you were relying on filters for these. They were just, I felt like I was on a tour with you just through food. This was Way Bourdain that I was living vicariously through.
Honestly, it is, I would say, a great motivator for me these days, not just to sightsee, but to live, is to definitely experience all the different types of food that, especially a place like Japan, could offer. So I got to have just excellent meals and excellent quality food between, Michelin rated ramen shops to even just your run of the mill 7-Eleven egg sandwiches, which were all excellent. It almost depressed me to go to I had a layover in Dallas and then going to a North American 7-Eleven with the old hot dogs rolling on the little grill.
Please tell me you did not engage in that.
I did not engage, no, but
okay.
I'm just saying it's a world of difference going from, a Japanese 7-Eleven or a Lawson's to, that quality to, I guess, what it is everywhere else in the world. So I guess to answer your question, I could have stayed maybe a little bit longer, but I think I was starting to feel, I was starting to miss my own bed and my own routine again.
Now, is your girlfriend still over there, or did you both come back together?
She's there for about 5 more days. Because we had the wrestling to do for the first 7 days. She basically delayed her trip by a week. And with how long the flight was, right? You experienced it twice firsthand. These are 24-hour trips for us because of the layovers. So
it took me 28 to get home. It was a lengthy one. You probably had similar.
It was similar yesterday for sure. Yeah. So for whatever reason, these layovers have just been a lot longer than what I've usually experienced. So she wanted to make her trip a bit more worthwhile. So she's staying for about a few more days. But yeah. How was your return?
It sounds like a lot doing 28 hours. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and I know this is going to be breaking news to a lot of people. I did not really mind having 28 hours alone to just travel. It was kind of enjoyable. And I knew ahead of time that I was facing not just the layovers, because I had 2 layovers along the way. And on top of that, there was going to be weather problems. So I was warned in advance that I could end up getting stuck for a prolonged period at either of my layovers, which I did have a bit of a delay in Chicago. Dallas was fine, except I went over all this last week. But anyway, getting home, the actual jet lag, it probably lasted it was like 3 days where I was fine all day, but then 7 p.m. hit, and it was like I hit a wall and was just dying. As some people will go back, and Damien was so kind to point out every 10 minutes of how exhausted I sounded on Rewind to Dynamite.
I honestly couldn't tell.
I was just going through quicksand in that show because I was exhausted.
I couldn't tell until actually he brought it up. So I guess by your voice, you're able to put up quite a convincing act. But it's really interesting.
Then he put a big flashlight on it. So
it's really interesting how you said at 7 o'clock it really hit you, because I was going through very much the same thing today. Where throughout the entire day, I got back last night. But then today I was just back to regular routine. In fact, better than usual for me. I woke up at 8 a.m. at a full day, just got a bunch of shit done, and then at about 5, 6 o'clock, I start to feel sick. I had to take a nap, at least a half hour nap before Raw. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to get through it. So it really
I just powered. I was getting up at 5 to 5:30 the first couple of days, and I would just power through and stay up till. There was one night I went to sleep at 10 p.m. That would have been a night I didn't have to do a show, so maybe that was the Tuesday. And I would say, though, by Thursday, definitely by Friday, I was completely back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's really not that bad, I suppose, thankfully, at least for us. So all in all, you and I haven't really spoken since even you came back, but, all in all, what did you think of the trip? Is it a trip that you would want to do again? Just overall, your thoughts.
I would definitely do it again. My biggest issue going into this whole thing was being on a plane for that amount of time, and it was nothing. It was honestly fine. I didn't have any issue with that amount of time on an airplane. So I would definitely do it again. I don't know if I would be ready to do it again next year.
Me neither. Actually,
I think the people who go every single year, it's a big one. And I don't think I would be ready to do that one again next year. But at some point in the future, if there was the right circumstance and it made sense for you and I to do it, because that's kind of my first priority is what are you and I getting out of it for the site to make such a massive trip, then I'd certainly be open to it. Absolutely.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. It sounds like you hit a bit of a breakthrough, because I know on that first flight, I was with you, John. And by the way, I did also have a middle seat.
You did?
So you're aware. Yeah, we both had middle seats, but you know what? We both came out of that first flight. Well, first of all, you were going into it. I saw in your face, you were almost panicked. You were so worried about having to sit on a plane for 12 hours. And by the time you got done, first thing you said to me was piece of cake. So I was actually quite proud that you seem to have this breakthrough, along with being able to order food in Japanese.
I tried to order food in Japanese.
Trying is the most important part.
Yeah, I did enjoy when I just kind of wandered off on myself, because that's when you're going to actually go through all this stuff, when you don't have to rely on others there. If I had you there, you had 10 million apps on your phone that could decode stuff for me. But there was one day I just wandered around the entire city for 2 hours, and that was just fun too.
Yeah.
It was well, if I get lost, that's kind of the fun of it.
I think that's a great attitude, and it's almost empowering when you know, at the end of the night, you come home and you realize, like, you didn't die. You know, what was the worst that could have happened? Oh, you had to take out your phone to Google directions? Or
that's it. I mean, what's the absolute worst that is going to happen is that you get lost and you've got Google Maps. Like, we're so spoiled. I will say, I have yet to try the wasabi Kit Kat. So I think that you and I are going to have to try this wasabi Kit Kat at some point.
I think that, I mean, next time if we do go to Japan, I think we should devote an equal amount of time to trying out new foods as we do to wrestling, because I think that would be as much interest to at least our patrons as anybody else.
We did very well on the lens content, I think.
I think so too. It was fun. You know, lens is always very useful for for these trips, and it was nice to dust off the old lens on Patreon and catch all of our listeners up. And we'll be doing the same probably for WrestleMania weekend this year.
Yes, that is not too far away. So
that's the next thing. Yep.
Yeah, we're starting to tackle what shows we're going to be going to. Is there are about 10,000 shows that are happening that week.
We'll be going to how many, you think?
904.
Okay.
No, right now we've gotten how many do we have? I think we're confirmed right now for 3 shows.
I think we're gonna try to pace ourselves. At least I want to, John. You know, like some of these previous years, we've just really tried to, like, man, stack way too much, I think, on our plate. In addition to, like, you know, recording shows, I would want to pace myself a little bit more and maybe concentrate on, let's say, 2, you know, maybe 3 smaller shows a night if we're feeling really ambitious, or maybe just 1 big long show.
Yeah, I mean, we're only going to be there 3 days, pretty much, and one of those, well, we're hoping to, well, have something involving our show. But
right.
I mean, it's Thursday we go there, Monday we come home, so it's pretty much Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then Sunday's WrestleMania, which we could go to one of the competing brunches on the Sunday, but Sunday is pretty much reserved for the Mammoth show, which I don't know how much wrestling I can take beyond being in that stadium for however many hours we'll be there.
Yeah. It's, I mean, you've been through a 26-hour travel day. I think you could get through anything now.
Is there anything that's better to get you set for sitting at WrestleMania than a plane ride across the world to Japan? I think that is the way to get yourself ready.
I suppose if you're somebody traveling from Japan to go to WrestleMania, that really is the ultimate endurance test.
I will say, like, having now being able to compare the two, Wrestle Kingdom, where we were not in like a media box or anything like that, Wrestle Kingdom breezed by in comparison.
Yeah.
Those were 5.5 hour shows, back-to-back nights. And I would say the only drag I felt was maybe the first half of the second night. I definitely felt that portion drag, where I felt that the 2 nights, it felt like a lot, and it probably hindered some of my enjoyment of some of the matches that maybe watching on television they would have come across stronger.
Certainly helps that I think the quality of the in-ring is better at a place like a Wrestle Kingdom. I think maybe the novelty of, like, you know, being able to see so many of these stars for the first time for you, perhaps, and for me too, really, like, especially in a setting like the Tokyo Dome, maybe that might have played a part as well. So, you know, if it was your first WrestleMania, John, do you feel like you would feel that tired as well? If it was like 7 hours, you probably would. Actually,
I think so. I mean, I look at, it's just nobody I ever talk to ever, like, that is so consistent. That is the complaint about WrestleMania for so many people. It's just the length. That's it. I think most people, they enjoy the spectacle of it. There's still an enjoyment of going, but it's way too long for anybody when you're talking about 6 to 7 hours, especially compounded when it's an outdoor stadium and you're in the sun for that amount of time. It's a lot to ask of your audience. So I feel, you know, I've gone to a lot of them, so I don't know. I don't enjoy watching wrestling in stadiums to begin with. To me, like, the Tokyo Dome was a lot of fun, but to me, it was hardly my favorite venue to watch wrestling in while we were over there.
What was your favorite?
Corkin. That was my favorite to go.
I think that was my favorite as well. It was really cool to be in Shinkiba first ring. I really actually enjoyed that as well. I really like that Stardom show you and I went to. But like being Corkin is just like, there's something so historic about the venue itself, and just sightlines everywhere.
It's just such a great place to watch it. Even like the history is it's just was a very cool building to walk through for the first time. But as of just an actual building, it's fantastic to watch wrestling in.
Yeah, TGIF is right downstairs.
What more could you ask for? Well, let us move on. I think we should, right off the top, talk about the Royal Rumble pool. And I'm just going to pass it over to you. We have a couple of days before the Royal Rumble, and fear not, we do have the annual post-wrestling Royal Rumble pool, and it is now live.
I've been getting some questions about where the Rumble pool was, and so apologies, everybody, for the slight delay. But you know what? I think we're helping you all, because you probably want to watch this go-home show at least before making all of your choices anyway. So the Rumble pool is up a little bit later this year, but it is now live. postwrestling.com/rumble, where you can find our entry form created by the currently vacationing Chris Engler, who himself is celebrating a anniversary in Hawaii. So congratulations to you, Chris. I hope you continue to enjoy.
Is he celebrating the anniversary of the Royal Rumble pool?
Yes, exactly. Yes, he and his wife decided to just
his second biggest commitment, the Royal Rumble pool.
Well, I mean,
tabulating.
I feel like the G1 might be a bigger commitment for him, but yes, the
Rumble
pool. He'll probably celebrate that one too when it hits however many years. But thank you again, Chris. Enjoy your vacation while you're on it. Hawaii is amazing. But
I think he's on a plane as we speak on his way back, so I don't know if there's much vacation to enjoy. But
okay, well, enjoy.
I hope you had a great time.
Enjoy the plane ride, and when you get back, you better start busting your ass, because you're going to have a lot of entries to go through. Categories, asking about the men's and women's Rumble. We have about 13 pages of them asking all these questions. So take your time, make your thoughts properly, and put a lot of effort into it. If you fill in your email address, and then you will get a copy of your results right afterwards. So postwrestling.com/rumble.
All right, go join. It's free to join, and we'll be announcing the winner on next week's edition of Rewind at Dynamite. So next Wednesday night, we'll have the winner after we tabulate all of the results, because it's usually a very high volume of entries that we get. So go submit all your picks now, and that is it.
Deadline is Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Perfect. Eastern time, 3 p.m. on Sunday. So, looking ahead at this week, on Tuesday night, Way and I are back. It is our first Rewind Away of the year, and we're going to be chatting about All Japan Women's Dream Slam 1 card from April the 2nd, 1993, and this is a very historical card, one that we have reviewed in another lifetime, but was news to me.
I had no clue. I had completely no clue. At the end of the last Rewind Away, we were like, oh, I'm so excited. This will be the first time we get to talk about an All Japan Women's show, or just a Joshi wrestling show on Review Away or Rewind Away in general. And we were quickly informed that that was not the case. We've reviewed this one before, but I have zero recollection of it whatsoever.
This is the first time I have ever, in my research, gone into what I will dub the Darchives, and had to literally listen to myself as a research tool and take some notes of myself reviewing this show. And dude, it's like I'm listening to a total stranger, and it was the most bizarre experience listening to this.
I can't wait to hear about some of your notes, actually, about maybe what I thought and what you thought. Did you listen to the whole thing? Or just
no, I just skimmed through it. There's no way I could get through a whole show of myself.
I'm just curious if you happen to influence your own opinion on your second viewing.
I was more so just listening for just specific research notes that I may have had in that show.
Got it.
It was a very bizarre experience. I was listening to it like this was part of my research, is relying on myself from however many years ago that we did this. But
it will get to a point where we've reviewed everything, and for some of these smaller shows, or at least less talked about shows, we might be the only resource. So maybe this will happen again in the future. But yeah, we're not going to be reviewing the entire card, because it is a 5-hour, 6-hour show.
No, we're going to review the final 5 matches on the show. Unlike our first time where we decided it was too long, we're going to review the final 6 matches. We literally cut it in half, but this time around, we cut off another match.
See, we're not working as harder, but we are working smarter, I feel. And
that's it.
And the last 5 matches,
work around injuries and limitations.
And the last 5 matches were actually at the request of the executive producer Chase Klaus, who just asked us to, hey, just do the last 5. And they are the last 5. I would say perhaps the most important to this show. Many of them rated 5 stars by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer. And if you right now go to forum.postwrestling.com, you'll find a feedback thread for patrons as well as a link to watch the show.
Yes, and more on those ratings on Tuesday night's show. So that will be available for all patrons. All members of the Post Wrestling Cafe will get that show late Tuesday night. Over to Wednesday, we have our regular lineup. Way and I will have Rewind a Dynamite coming your way as we review the matches from the Jericho Cruise that has taken off, and people are on a boat as we speak. And it sounds like the internet is not great on this boat. So I'm curious if results will get out of the matches that are taped ahead of time for Wednesday.
I wonder. All in all, I don't feel like it would have much effect on. Perhaps
I don't think they're going to have any effect. This is a pretty big show when you consider Chris Jericho, Kenny Omega, and Jon Moxley are all wrestling on this show. Coupled with, I think that the unique environment is a bit of a draw in and of itself too.
For sure, yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to it.
And of course, Braden and Davey will have a new edition of Up Next coming your way on Wednesday night. Then we move on. Thursday, we are not going to have an edition of the Café Hangout. However, what we are going to do is Friday night, Rewind to SmackDown. We are going to do a special live edition of that show where Way is going to review SmackDown. I'm going to review the NWA Hard Times pay-per-view, and then we're going to open up the phone lines, and we'll be taking your calls. Friday night, we will look ahead to the Royal Rumble, Worlds Collide, and anything else you want to discuss. So a rare Friday night live edition of Rewind to SmackDown for all of our patrons. It is Friday Night Live.
Friday Night Live, yes.
This is like our Electric Circus.
Will you be dancing in your window?
If you tune in, you'll find out. I guess we do kind of have the setup here.
Well, you do have a window looking to the post office, so maybe we'll have some dancing going on. Maybe Master T will show up. We'll be blasting the Aqua in the background.
Yeah, we won't have the singer MJ, but maybe we'll have the other MJ call in.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to be flying to the moon.
We definitely have like different reference points, but
we were raised very differently. I think you were doing very different things on Friday nights than I was.
Well, also on Friday, John, new edition of the British Wrestling Experience, I understand. So, and I forgot to thank those guys. Great job that they've been doing over the past several weeks as well.
Yes, Martin is making his own return from Japan. He will be on this week's show with Benno and Jamesy. It is the Holy Trinity coming together on Friday, and they're doing a unique show this week because they're going to look back at the top matches and moments from the European scene throughout the decade of the 2010s. So they are going to go through a whole decade on this show on Friday that I'm very much looking forward to.
Very daunting task, but I definitely trust those guys to be pretty comprehensive about it all. So I'm looking forward to that. Martin, it was great to hang out with him actually in Japan. He and his wife, they're on a mission to go to every single Disneyland in the entire world, and I feel like they've already crossed a number of them off the list. So, I look forward to hearing him again on the radio.
Then on Saturday, we've got the Worlds Collide post show that Braden and Davey are going to be doing. Sunday, new edition of Thunderstruck with W.H. Park. And this week, he's going to be joined by the man himself, Martin Bushby. And they're going to be chatting Jushin Thunder Liger, Shinjiro Otani from March of 1996. And
did they record this one in the Irish pub?
They may have. Maybe this was a late night episode after a WH Corona and a Guinness from Martin, which seemed to be the go-to drinks for them at this Irish pub that we discovered. The name of which none of us would be able to pronounce without Jamesy's help. Then Sunday night, the weekend's off with the Royal Rumble post show. Way and I will be live. You will be able to tune in live if you're a Double Ice Cap or Espresso member. We'll be taking phone calls, going through the entire Royal Rumble. How long do you think this Royal Rumble is going to be on Sunday?
The pay-per-view?
Starts at 5 p.m., so we get our 2-hour kickoff. What do you think? What would you guess would be our time that we're going to actually start the show at?
Oh, you mean us? Okay. Well,
us.
I would predict that the pay-per-view would probably go till about 10:30. So I don't know. I would ballpark 11 p.m.
Well, they're in a ballpark, so
okay.
They could. 10:30 would be fine. 5.5 hours. I can stomach that.
Yeah.
The kickoff. You kind of learn that you can kind of
skip it. Yeah, I think most people are probably in the habit of skipping those kickoffs these days, unless you're doing a podcast.
I guess so. So there you go. That is a packed week here at postwrestling.com. So check out everything. Don't miss a second of what we have to offer this week because you'd just be incomplete without it.
Or listen to 1.5 speed, or at least 2 times speed, which
I don't care what speed people listen to, as long as you
including
consume every morsel.
0.5 speed, as Brandon from New Jersey, I think, has started.
Well, he's out of his mind. I think everyone has learned that about Brandon. I will say that having been off for the past month with the Café Hangout, I miss Brandon.
I missed all those callers, and hopefully some of them will call in this week on Friday, or if not, when the Café Hangout returns next Thursday.
Yeah, let's be honest. We're being very ambitious by doing this on a Friday night.
Kind of, yeah.
But we'll see. If you guys want to hang out with us on a Friday night, this is the week to blow off that date that you've got lined up. Don't worry about going out with your friends drinking. Just stay home and chill out with us, because what could be better?
Nothing.
We'll pull out, if you tune in Friday night, maybe Way and I are going to indulge in some wasabi-flavored Kit Kat.
Oh, that should be the main event.
Could be. So, and Way gave me the option of SmackDown or the NWA pay-per-view, so I hope you don't mind that I chose NWA.
Not at all. Not at all. You deserve it.
All right, a few news items. We don't have a lot to go through here because I do want to get into Raw, but let us look at what was making news today. Ring of Honor has announced that their next pay-per-view is going to be on a Friday night, Way. So we'll see who is going to be choosing that one. And they've also announced, so the pay-per-view, it's their 18th anniversary card. That'll be the Friday night in Las Vegas. The next night, they're running the same Sam's Town location in Vegas, and they're doing a past versus present card. And they're advertising the likes of Necro Butcher, Homicide, Matt Sydal, and essentially bringing back names from the past. So this is one of the more creative cards that ROH has come up with in some time. And I'd almost say this is more of a hook for the pay-per-view than just doing this show the next night in Vegas. But the pay-per-view will be separate from this. What are your thoughts on Ring of Honor sticking with Friday night as their pay-per-view night, first of all? Do you think that it's a negative with SmackDown going against them, or do you think that the night of the week matters little for Ring of Honor, that people are either going to be interested in this or they're not, regardless of the night?
I think at the moment I'm more of the opinion of the latter. That, even if they did run on a Saturday, I don't necessarily see that much more interest. However, I think the idea of doing another one of these nostalgia shows, taking a cue from, let's say, something like what Impact is doing, I think is a really interesting experiment. Certainly has my interest as somebody who, maybe remembers ROH more so from its glory years, if you want to call it that. However, it's a matter of how many people you could really get at this point.
That's the issue. It's a lot like this Impact card where it's like when you start to think of the names that come to mind, it's like, okay, they're all in pretty much one company.
Yeah. I mean, you're essentially trying to do a throwback one night only type of show with Matt Sydal, Doug Williams, Homicide, and Necro Butcher. Those guys are all great, but they hardly, I would say, comprise, your image of what Ring of Honor might have been in the past. So I look forward to seeing maybe what other names they'd be able to get. Who else do you think would show up?
Let's think about this. Davey Richards is someone you could reach out to.
Ooh,
Low Key,
yep.
CM Punk. Austin Aries is out there, I guess.
You think Colt will come back? He's probably
if it didn't conflict with something, absolutely. He hasn't been far removed from it. Yeah. You could totally have a Cabana come in. I'm thinking from the early days, the Christopher Street Connection or Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Ian Riccaboni was like teasing that with Xavier coming in. You could probably. It's interesting to see.
Jay Lethal should come out as Hydro. And we could have
that would actually be really fun if you did something like that where you had like a Jay Lethal do a throwback character, because that's what this show kind of seems to be aiming towards. My curiosity is, like, can you attract that? Like, for instance, like I use like Benno as an example, a guy that like lived and died Ring of Honor in the mid 2000s that has probably like trailed off from the current version of Ring of Honor. Is there enough out there that it could bring back an audience for one night? And I'm presuming this will be on Honor Club, that you'll be able to watch it, but it almost seems like it's a cool concept that I would almost do as like the anniversary pay-per-view.
I agree. And I hope they bring back, elements like the old logo, maybe like the old mat, like things like that in itself, much like
no color balancing for the night.
Yeah.
The cameras are all out of whack.
Overmodulated
copyright music that they get pulled off the pay-per-view for.
Gabe Sapolsky screaming, overmodulated, commercials for DVDs in between matches.
That would be awesome. They should release this thing as a DVD. It shouldn't be on Honor Club. That'd be awesome. It's just on like 2 VHSs.
Yeah. Brilliant. Done. Yeah. Well, maybe one half is on a DVD, but the other half with the current stars are on streaming. So you'd have to put the two together. Yeah,
you can have. I'm trying to think like who your representative could be. It's like Ian Riccaboni's phone number is like the number, the call to order them.
Any chance Gabe Sapolsky makes an appearance?
No, I don't think so.
Probably not either. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, nostalgia. Nostalgia is popular.
It is. It's nostalgia is the go-to. It feels like in 2020. The Jericho Cruise, as we mentioned.
Sorry, just to even. It's kind of weird to have like a past versus present show with PCO being your representative of the present.
He is the present and the future, perhaps.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
I haven't talked to you about this, but, Ring of Honor, it was, both of our selections for worst promotion of the year. And in this first couple of weeks of 2020, they've made some notable moves, the biggest being re-signing Marty Scurll. He's now going to have a major role in creative. They've signed Bandito. Flamita is also signed. Like, do you feel that they've done any moves that have at least sparked your interest to catch up on Ring of Honor, or is it just kind of a wait and see? Like, where is your attitude towards Ring of Honor after some of these announcements?
I think beyond keeping some of, their more higher regarded prospects, I think the idea of having Marty Scurll in a creative role is the most interesting thing to me, and the thing that tells me that they're actually looking to create some change. Now, obviously, I think you have to look at the product itself to see how much change is really to come, but I think or whether or not this is just a PR announcement with, Marty Scurll being some sort of figurehead. But I think the problems with Ring of Honor aren't necessarily with its roster. It's with what's going on creatively. It's a little bit the roster too, but I mean they clearly have a lot of talent that they could do a lot more with than I think they currently are. They have a lot of guys now signed on for more longer term deals. Among them, Marty Scurll himself. So maybe it is a bit of a wait and see. But I definitely have a renewed interest since the end of last year.
Were you surprised last week about the AEW renewal with TNT?
It kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't realize, that negotiations were necessarily happening, but clearly TNT was happy enough with the current, results of this experiment that they wanted to re-up it. And so in a way, it did surprise me a little, but I think it made complete sense if you're TNT and if you have what's considered a hot product on a Wednesday, wanting to get it while it's still relatively new, relatively cheap, and relatively, I think, hot right now. So I something that made a whole lot of sense to me. I think the idea of a second or third hour at this point coming to TV is also interesting, but we shall see too, whether or not how important that third hour is going to be. If it's just going to be dark, I don't necessarily feel like it'll change too many things, but if they are putting more production behind it and making it, almost something on the level of like what SmackDown used to be, or like a bona fide second show that feels like it's required viewing, then it's kind of bad news for you and I, John, because that's almost another additional hour that would be somewhat mandatory that we'd probably have to review. But good for AEW.
Yeah, to me, it was a safe move for AEW to make, like from reports out there that this gets them into profitability, which is phenomenal for them in the second year. The contract is through 2023. And the only thing I would say is that I would be really curious that had AEW put this thing out, like what would the interest be in AEW? Could they have driven their price up that much more than what they're getting? Like, to me, $175 million over the course of this. So you're talking about just under $44 million per year. To me, it's TNT might be getting a bargain out of this by locking this in for that amount of time through the end of 2023 and then having an option at the end of it. So, I mean, to me, it satisfies both sides, but I would be curious, like what the AEW product would get on the open market if there was other bidders involved, and if they could have driven up their price even longer, if they had a year of these numbers to support a case for a larger rights fee.
Would have been a gamble. So, yeah. I mean, I think from a business sense, it does make sense because it's a gamble for TNT to, associate themselves with the brand new product for that amount of time. And so it gives AEW a bit of, a bit of a cushion to rest on. And, being, I think, pretty well versed in like managing sports teams and perhaps TV rights themselves, the cons, I imagine this just felt like a good opportunity for
being profitable this year. That's incredible. I did not forecast them being able to turn a profit in year two. Like that's a real impressive feat that they were able to pull off through this deal. And I think that it really does shine a light when you're looking and assessing the health of other companies that, that is the goal in 2020. It's securing these big television deals. And you have to wonder, like, what is the end goal for some of these other companies? Or even looking at a New Japan coming over here to run live events. Like, to me, if your ultimate destination is not television and landing a big deal, it's almost like you're competing in an industry that doesn't exist anymore if you're just looking at the live event front.
For sure. And I also imagine that, like, this was probably a company that was preparing for a couple of years of loss before even turning a profit. So the fact that they're going to do this immediately, I think it already puts them well ahead of, I think, their schedule.
And final thing here, did you get to see the Conor McGregor fight on Saturday?
I did. I watched this during my layover. In fact, I had it spoiled for me by ESPN on the TV as I was walking through, but I did catch the full 40 seconds. Very impressive.
You caught all four.
Yes.
It was a very impressive fight. It did enormous business this past weekend. It seems that, Conor McGregor has the potential to have an incredible year, and there are all these options at the table that go beyond just mixed martial arts. Like, if we're looking within the industry, you have the winner of Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson, who are fighting in April, Jorge Masvidal at welterweight. There's, Justin Gaethje is out there, but you also have names like Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao that I think you'd be foolish to just dismiss those options at this point, when those would represent the largest, from a financial perspective, the largest fights for Conor McGregor if those fights could happen for him.
That sentence, honestly, to me is still crazy. The fact that, like, we're including Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather in the same conversation as, like, this MMA guy. But you're right, that's the reality of it. How many MMA gyms do you think in the world today are drilling shoulder shrugs?
Oh, it's got to be just being the hot thing. I'm amazed that those were as effective as they were.
Yeah, brilliant. Whoever came up with it in their camp. Do you know why Tony Robbins was there?
Tony Robbins has become, like, in Conor's, like, inner circle. He's, like, met with the guy, and
maybe he taught him the shoulder shrugs.
I don't know. I would think he would be teaching him something with his chin or something. I don't know. Yeah, these
wow.
the shoulder was like the key. That knee that he landed on him very early were the key strikes. I think that like this does become a very big portion of Donald Cerrone's career. Like for all the accolades and the incredible fights he's been in, like to me, it's impossible to tell the story of Donald Cerrone without including like the biggest fights where this has been the outcome. Like the RDA fight when he finally, after he won all those fights in a row and challenged for the lightweight title, and again finished in the first round, like without. It's like you know how great this guy is, and in these biggest fights, like it's not even that he doesn't even get started.
Yeah. Unfortunately for this one, I mean, the biggest of them all with the biggest audience, and to lose it in 40 seconds, I mean, I'm sure he's probably having to deal with a lot of mental stuff today. So I hope he makes a recovery in that sense, and is able to perhaps not necessarily finish his career on a note like this and have something bigger. But even if he does, like, I think, like fans need to often realize how much of a feat it is to even enter the UFC, much less to have the type of career that Donald Cerrone has had. So, I mean, I consider him potentially a future Hall of Famer with the UFC either way, even if he doesn't get a championship.
Oh, definitely.
So, I do hope mentally he's dealing with all this perfectly fine.
Yeah, so just to put into perspective some of the numbers for this card. So they drew over 19,000 people to the T-Mobile Arena. The gate was, off the top of my head, I believe it was the fourth largest gate in MMA history, behind the Conor Khabib fight from October of 2018, the first card at Madison Square Garden with Conor and Eddie Alvarez, and the card here at Rogers Center with George St. Pierre and Jake Shields. Those would be the only three that were ahead of Saturday's gate, which is incredibly impressive. Conor now has 7 of the top 10 gates in the history of Nevada. Wow. This was just such an enormous fight on Saturday. The prelims peaked with 1.9 million viewers for the Roxanne Modafferi-Macy Barber fight, which is an unbelievable number for UFC prelims. So this was just an enormous fight on Saturday. I knew it was going to be big. The question was just how big. And I guess the big number that I don't know if we'll ever know is how many buys they did on ESPN Plus, because this would have to be by a wide margin the biggest in the ESPN era, with them distributing the pay-per-view. The difference, though, from the last fight that Conor had with Khabib, which you're talking about a pay-per-view universe of around 100 million, ESPN Plus, as of last November, has 3.5 million subscribers. So it's a massive difference just in terms of who you're drawing from. But Dana White just went to and said that the number for a streaming service was incredible. And I'm sure it was. I'm sure this is incredible business, but it does probably show you that, there's an enticement if you're a Conor McGregor to fight a Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather on traditional pay-per-view, where you can make your absolute biggest amount of money just because of the amount of buys you can do there versus an ESPN Plus.
Will you have a sense of how many people might have signed on to ESPN Plus as a result of this fight?
I really thought that ESPN would put out some kind of press release just touting some stats, because they must be incredible. But I haven't seen anything that they've put out yet. They're very quiet about any of these numbers, and I was curious to see this one. They're like, why wouldn't you kind of toot your own horn about this? But they have not stated anything. But I'm sure it was record breaking for ESPN Plus. So what's your prediction? What do you think will be the next fight that Conor McGregor has?
I mean, at this point, I have no idea what the names that I think people are throwing out there. Personally, I think Masvidal would be, to me, the one that I would have the most interest in. It just seems like it's, in terms of a personality clash, I think that in terms of star power, I find it very fascinating. In terms of a match, I find it very fascinating. So that would be my choice.
Not Manny Pacquiao?
Yeah, I mean, it's so wild, but I thought the Floyd fight was really wild. So obviously I'd watch it if it was him. I'd probably watch it. Yeah. I mean, I feel shitty to even say it, that I would probably watch any fight that he'd be a part of. Especially hey, how do you feel about the fact that I think last we spoke about Conor, you and I, it was something to do with some some news story that he was going through. And I think you and I had the discussion about whether or not people would no longer tune in, or at least feel a bit more apprehension about tuning into his fights. How much of that talk do you think took place preceding?
It definitely happened last week. Like, there were certainly, like, this. I think I can look very clearly at this entire idea of Conor coming back to fight was very much just like, this was a PR tour for Conor McGregor. I feel, and I thought it was a very successful one, because by the end of it, everyone's talking about what's next for him, what the next fights are. But in the lead up during this week, like, there were definitely people that were bringing up, this cloud that is still over his head, like these investigations into sexual assault that, it still has not been charged, but that's still lingering. And Conor has, he was asked about it a couple of times. I don't know if you were aware, but at the press conference, Morgan Campbell was there on behalf of the New York Times and brought up the allegations and got booed by the fans there for him just bringing this up. So if that doesn't tell you what this fan base, at least that fan base, thought of it, wow. I think that was pretty telling. It was a pretty, like, awful moment, and Morgan, to his credit, just pushed through to try and get an answer from them, but was largely just shut down. But it's, I think that for a large amount of people, there are those that, they're going to be turned off by some of these actions from Conor McGregor. But I think a lot of people, they weigh, how much entertainment do I get out of this person versus the ethical questions that he forces me to answer. And I think for a lot of people, they are able to dismiss the allegations that are out there or overlook some of the incidents that we have seen that clearly happened, that were caught on camera, that were pretty despicable. And it was Conor McGregor being on his best behavior all week long. And I think a lot of people just got swept up in, this was Conor McGregor turning the clock back, and people getting just engulfed in this frenzy that was Conor McGregor just steamrolling through a guy and creating all of these potential matchups for him in 2020.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could say even for myself, I'm almost a little disappointed, but yeah, I really, it's something that I personally have to kind of think about.
Yeah, I mean, these, it's, to me, it's going to be over his head until there is some kind of finality to these allegations. Or if he, like, the most he said about them was in the interview with Ariel Helwani, that he maintains he's innocent and that he has to be patient, and, alluding to the fact that the story will come out, that he will be, I guess he believes that he will be exonerated in the court of public opinion. But until there is that answer to two separate investigations, I think everyone is going to still have that cloud will be over Conor McGregor's head. But when it comes to fighting, I think many people will overlook that cloud. And that's just, the way it seems to work when it comes to sports and celebrities. So those are some of your news items as we get caught up on everything with Way here. But you can go check out postwrestling.com for all the latest news. And that takes us to Raw, the go-home show heading into Sunday's Royal Rumble. And we were in Wichita, Kansas on Monday night. Kicking things off were the newly formed faction of Seth Rollins, AOP, and Buddy Murphy. And they all come out.
Are we going to get a name for the faction?
Well, it's got to be something Christ-like, doesn't it?
Well, you're the expert. I mean, you went to private school or a Catholic school, so got one?
Oh, I'm really going to have to. It's very tough with the four of them to bring them all together. I'll work on one.
Yeah.
So, what do you think
Buddy
of Seth's?
Christ was pretty damn good last week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that one came to me quick. So, what did you think of Seth's new shirt here?
I haven't had a good look at it. I guess I will now. Seth, I mean,
it really jumps out at the screen with the other three all in black, and then he's got this like pastel version of like himself as Christ. It's
yeah, okay. I got a good image. It's a stained glass, image of Seth Rollins. I think it's a cool idea. Like he looks like Jesus anyway, so it works well. I don't know if this will sell on the level of a Bull Club shirt at all, but I think it's a cool shirt. It won't be worse wrestling merch this year.
What if he starts coming down to the ring like in a white like robe and really embraces the Jesus element?
That might be a little much, don't you think?
I want to see how far they can push the Monday Night Messiah until people get upset.
Sure.
Last week, Buddy Murphy opened his eyes. They recapped last week, and there's a big hug with Seth and Buddy. And their plan, Owens and Joe's plan with the Big Show failed, and everyone has to decide which side they're on. And this prompts Joe and Owens to come out, and they explain that you guys took out the Big Show, but he'll be back eventually. So Big Show came back for all of 2 weeks, and he's done.
I expected as much, I suppose. You know, maybe I expected actually a more, like an actual match or something, like an actual maybe singles, but I don't know. Like, he wasn't even here to promote the TV show, really. Like, it just like he showed up because they needed a big body for a couple weeks, and then
they never brought up that show he's involved with.
No, I mean, I guess it's not ready yet to be even promoted, but maybe they just needed somebody of his stature for a couple weeks, and that was sort of it. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, this was another topic I want to throw at you. Is now that we are how many 3 weeks away, are you surprised at the lack of promotion on WWE programming for the XFL?
Yeah,
there's nothing.
Kind of.
There's nothing.
Well, I mean, I haven't really heard a thing about it at all. Like, I'm also not watching like whatever sports channels that might actually cover it, but like I think amongst even wrestling circles, I'm hearing very little about it, and to even hear that it's 3 weeks away is definitely a little surprising to me.
Especially on, I am most curious about, because the first week of the XFL, they're on like major networks. Like that first week, they have games on ABC, ESPN, and most importantly on Fox. And the reason that's important, not just because that is a WWE broadcast partner, Fox is the home of the Super Bowl this year. And if you're Fox, would it not make sense that on your biggest broadcast of the year that you're promoting next week, we've got more football? And I'm curious to see if the XFL gets any ad inventory at the Super Bowl this year, and Fox makes a big push for it.
I do suppose, like 3 weeks out. So what exactly is the start date?
February the 8th.
The 8th. Okay, so really after the Rumble, it'd be 2 weeks. Yeah, I am perhaps a little bit surprised. But if we do see a push, perhaps it'll be after the Rumble, or maybe even just quote unquote on the go home edition of Raw. Maybe a little bit of a package. Or how much do you feel like it is them wanting to,
make it separate?
Make it separate, as Vince McMahon seemed to do in that first initial press conference.
Mm-hmm. And there is now a lawsuit coming out of this as well from one of the shareholders about this entire thing, mixing it together. So I am interested to see that. I mean, to me, I would have expected at least to see it being promoted on SmackDown, being that it's on Fox as well. But I'm just comparing it to the last XFL, and maybe that it was much more ingrained with the WWF fabric and how it was being promoted. But that thing, it was a solid year, and you could not go any episode without hearing about the XFL and seeing ads and hearing about an XFL fair catch in Jim Ross's commentary. And you just compare it to now, and if you're a WWE viewer, you don't even know the XFL exists. Much less that it's coming up in a couple of weeks.
Well, the Rumble has, 60 entrants in it, so there's always a room, I think, for a He Hate Me or whoever.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that is it. But it will be very interesting to see if the XFL is promoted during the Super Bowl. I'd be very curious by that. Anyway, we get back to Raw here. So Big Show's gone. He'll be back eventually. And Joe calls Rollins a lawyered up asshat. And then Rollins tells them to come dance with Destiny, and they'll take them on 4-on-2. Joe says they've got backup as the Viking Raiders join in, and they storm the ring. Rollins immediately bails, leaving his partners to fight off the other four, and it culminates in Owens hitting a stunner on Akam, Uranagi to Buddy Murphy, and the babyfaces clear the ring, and the Crusade leaves.
about the ass hats?
The lawyered up ass hats.
Yeah. They're kind of wearing ass hats because I don't know if you noticed, but both Rollins and Buddy Murphy were rocking hair buns here.
Okay.
As part of their look. So
AOP have some growing to do then.
I suppose so, yeah. But the hair bun, really, if you're going to call a hair style any like ass hat, I feel like a hair bun would be the most qualified.
The man bun.
The man bun, sorry. Man bun, thank you. Yeah. You know, Rollins has been going like pretty full on with the whole cult leader thing. Obviously, I think it's a great improvement over the babyface that he was, but I was actually a lot more intrigued in him as a heel when he was sort of doing the tweener thing where he felt like he was doing good for everybody. He still feels that way, but like he was carrying himself at least in a much more of a subtle heel way. Whereas now, in the past couple weeks, I feel like he's just been full on, almost like comic book supervillain, full on evil, just needs to like maniacally laugh at this point. But I felt like he was almost that much more compelling when he was almost like a Thanos-like villain where he felt like he was doing good but wasn't necessarily spelling out like evil to the audience. But I mean, Raw, WWE, it's a show that does tend to, go a bit more black and white. So
it feels like he's doing like a kid's version of the straight edge society, like a version that's more wholesome. Because this is a character that could go very dark and play off of more kind of religious overtones that could make it like really fascinating character, I think. And I don't even think it's bad in its current form. I think that this has been something necessary for Seth Rollins, but I think you could go a lot darker and deeper with this character.
I agree. I think right now, I mean, if we're comparing it to something like the Straight Edge Society, this has a bigger stage because it's in the main event, but it seems to lack a bit of depth right now. As far as, like Rollins' motivation, what unites the group together, beyond just, looking at Seth Rollins as this messiah. I mean, I tend to want a little bit more depth for my heel characters, but listen, it's an improvement over weddings and cuck angles.
Andrade Rey Mysterio ladder match for the United States title. They made sure to cut to these 8 fans in the front row, all wearing the same Rey Mysterio shirt and Rey Mysterio masks. I was hoping for like an arrow pointing over top of them, for all of us to be made clearly aware of these fans at ringside. Like, what coordination?
I mean, maybe it was a bachelor party
in Wichita. Could have been. Rey gets driven into the barricade early, and then there's a ladder that is placed on the canvas, and there's a spinning Hurricane Rana from Rey off the turnbuckle, and Andrade lands on this ladder with his neck. Oh my God. This was the first cringy moment of this match. That looked like it sucked.
It seemed like he was aiming pretty high up on the upper back.
There's no way he could have been aiming to land with the neck, because that was just death. It just looked horrible.
This was really early on in the match, so, I mean, finished the rest of it all right, so I hope he's fine.
Oh, they took plenty of more damage later to make you forget about this. Andrade missed a flying knee into the corner, landing on the floor, and Rey came off the top with a flying senton. Then Rey took out a larger ladder, got it set up in the ring as Andrade's on the floor, but then pulls Rey down, and he hits the 3 amigos with the last one, a suplex to Rey onto the ladder. Later on, Andrade blocks a Hurricane Rana off the turnbuckle, powerbombs Rey onto one of the ladders that's draped on the middle rope into the main center ladder. That sets up our second commercial break. Then we come back. Rey sends Andrade into the post. He's climbing the ladder. Both men climb, and then Andrade lifts Rey into the setup for the gory special. And we've got a horizontal ladder that is going against the rope. And Rey goes to turn this gory special into a sunset bomb. But as he flips over, he crashes down into the ladder, followed by Andrade. And this sucked worse than the last one. There were some absolutely painful looking things in this match.
Oh, I know.
Oh, God.
They were really ambitious, I would say, for a lot of these spots, including something like this. I thought he was almost going for a code red, but it could have just been a sunset bomb. Unfortunately, didn't get all of it. But the attempt was admirable, and I feel like in the end, the result that I think everybody's looking for is just to see a human body crash through a ladder, and they at least got that.
Then there's a 619 hit to Andrade. Everyone is cheering rabidly for Rey. He climbs up the ladder, and then he holds on to the hook with the title, and the ladder is removed, so he's hanging above like the Devon Dudley spot. And Andrade pulls him down, and in their mind, it was Rey was going to like free fall as he lets go into a Hurricane Rana coming down. Instead, Rey nearly broke his neck here.
This was maybe the most scary one of them all. Yeah.
Dude, I was in pain watching this. Like, this was an absolutely physical ladder match. Like, we have watched some Money in the Banks over the last few years that have been very safe by prior standards. Mm-hmm. This was throwing all that out the window because there was some horrendous looking stuff here. Well, not horrendous in the sense that this was bad, but just some absolutely physical spots with the ladder.
They were very ambitious, and I would say, yeah, this was definitely designed to be very physical, but I think a spot like this was probably in their mind supposed to be a lot more graceful than it ended up being. But Rey got right back up.
Yeah, he seemed to be okay, miraculously, from this. Zelina Vega then climbed the ladder to block Rey from climbing, and as he's on the ladder climbing up, she slaps him. Andrade is back, and he hits a hammerlock DDT, sending both of them through the other horizontal ladder. This looked like it killed Andrade way worse than Rey. The ladder breaks, and then Andrade is the first to recover, and he climbs up, grabbing the title at 18 minutes and 45 seconds. This was a wild, wild match.
It certainly, it was a hell of a match to give away on TV. I mean, I thought this was every bit a pay-per-view level of ladder match. Very much I would say of your kind of WWE TLC style ladder match, which meant setting up a lot of obstacles and then watching these guys take a series of big falls in what ultimately resulted in a big spot fest. But I thought it was a really, several botches aside, I thought it was still a very strong sampling of that particular style. I really respected the amount of creativity in the spots that they designed. Not everything was executed flawlessly, but I don't think the match ever fell apart. You know, the crowd's reactions throughout were built up to a high level and sustained at that high level throughout. And they got a bunch of very satisfying crunches through aluminum ladders. So, and again, all the more impressive when you consider that it's a 45-year-old Rey Mysterio doing all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've really hit my limit on ladder matches just in general. But, man, these guys were super, super hard. It was a captivating match and was, one of your stronger matches that you've seen on Raw in quite some time, even with all the insanity that was part of this. And afterwards, Zelina takes the padding off of the floor, and she's encouraging Andrade to hit him with the hammerlock DDT onto the cement when one of the fans in the Rey mask reveals himself to be Humberto Carrillo, who is going to stop Andrade from taking out Rey the way he did and attacked Andrade. So by the end of this, you had Carrillo coming to Rey's aid, and presumably this was the end of Andrade Rey, and we segue over to Andrade and Carrillo coming out of this.
Yeah, so what's next for Rey?
I would think Rey gets moved up into that program with Owens and Joe and is involved in that feud.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I think Carrillo looks way cooler in a mask. Don't you?
You could put him under a mask. I think they believe the man has just those dimples. They can't cover them up.
The dimples are great. He's a good-looking man, but I think he just looks like such a little kid that I personally think he just looks a bit cooler under a mask. Maybe you can have a mask that like only exposes dimples, like just a circle where his dimples are.
Okay, like have his cheeks exposed.
Yeah, but you cover everything else. Cover the eyes, cover the mouth. Just two holes exposing the dimples.
How about you have an unmasked match where the loser has to wear a mask between Andrade and Humberto? Loser is masked because, and they will take away Humberto's great looks, and he'll have to be hidden under a mask.
That's a brilliant.
And Andrade gets the royalties on the mask.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that I love it. I love it. Maybe it could be in a reverse battle royal.
Do you think that there's still something left for Rey and Andrade? Because this match, if you're viewing it as the blow-off, didn't incorporate the mask at all. That was a great angle of unmasking Rey. Do you think that they still get to that point? Because this ladder match did feel like a blow-off by the end of it, unless you're going to have Rey come back and believe that Zelina cost him the match and they take this further.
I think that the match was hot enough, and I think that a stipulation like that is big enough that you could definitely go back to it, say for something like Mania. But the way this unfolded tells me that they're kind of done with it for now. I definitely think that you can go back to Andrade Rey at another point, but maybe several months or even a year or two later. It's, I don't know what the whole mask thing was. If it seemed like they might have been teasing something, or it could have just been something spots that they designed to get heat.
Yeah, they could have, if you were going to go that direction, there were certainly opportunities here that you could have focused on the mask again, and there was nothing to that in this at all. So I don't know if this is it or they do revisit that. It was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, so they ran a video in memory of him. And this capped off the first hour with a match involving Alistair Black and a dude that took the best black mass I've ever seen. This dude just sprinted at Black, took the black mass, and he lost in 8 seconds.
I thought this was badass as hell.
This was great.
Only thing that might have made it better is if Black did a few shoulder shrugs ahead of it.
Oh, yeah, that would have been great. Yeah. This was great. This ended the first hour. I thought this first hour was great.
Yeah, it moved well, I thought. In between feuds, I really don't mind Alistair Black going back to these squash matches once in a while. I think something like this does more for him than any 5-minute match could have. I also felt like it might have been a good opportunity for him to cut a promo live, but they definitely seem to want to keep his talking backstage in the room and not in front of a live crowd.
What if instead of just hitting the black mass out of nowhere, he put his hands up in the air and did a countdown?
Yeah. Let me think about this. No.
You gotta prepare the audience for the black mass. You can't have it just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, the countdown thing is a really interesting experiment, and I think most interesting is the fact that it's actually working for Drew McIntyre. I like the way that the black mass is, though.
They plugged Brock Lesnar coming up next, and they showed the graphic with 19 men announced for the Royal Rumble match. So to start off the second hour, Lesnar and Heyman come out. Heyman calls himself the soothsayer of the spoiler, and he feels that everyone takes what Lesnar does for granted. Heyman will outline some feat that Lesnar pulls off, and no one is shocked because he's Brock Lesnar, and he does all of these things that Heyman outlines. And Heyman then breaks down the Royal Rumble for us and how it works, and instead of giving specific times in between entrances, he just used the term intermittent intervals.
Intermittent intervals, okay.
Meaning we can just screw with the times as we see fit on Sunday.
Time is only a concept in the WWE.
It's a theory. No one in the locker room is worthy of headlining WrestleMania against Lesnar. He chastises the audience for booing Lesnar and asks, is anyone worthy of facing Brock? And out comes Ricochet. And I had to get a magnifying glass and make sure I could see what I did. He was holding a microphone. And I was like, oh boy. Listen, man. These words just spew out of your mouth. And we listen. And you talk a lot. I mean a lot. He ended up getting into... He actually was not that awful here by Ricochet standards. He says he has heard the whispers. Some are afraid to step in the ring with Lesnar. And Ricochet takes risks every single time. And he is not afraid. Lesnar refers to Ricochet as lunch meat and tells him to get lost. And Ricochet says that this Sunday is his ticket to WrestleMania. And he is willing to fight for that. So he enters the ring and challenges Lesnar to a fight. And Lesnar just goes to leave. And Ricochet says, what? Are you scared? So Lesnar calmly re-enters the ring, walks up to Ricochet, and kicks him low. And down goes Ricochet as Lesnar gets on the mic and says, not scared, and walks away. Now I will say this, okay? I'm not going to make a definitive statement about this segment, because maybe Ricochet is going to eliminate this guy in the Royal Rumble. I think that is not happening. And if it does, I will stand here and say, okay, I understood what this was setting up. But boy, did Ricochet feel like a geek by the end of this segment.
Okay, well, I agree with you that I think it's a great setup for Ricochet potentially eliminating Brock Lesnar. I don't know if I agreed that he necessarily came across like that big of a geek, because I would argue that he was already a geek. And I think by scripting him here to stand up to Brock Lesnar, I thought, the delivery was maybe the most confident and strong that I've heard him since he's been in the WWE.
I thought the promo was fine. It was just the way he pretty much called out Brock Lesnar, and Brock just simply took care of him in no time.
Okay, he stood up to the bully. Okay, asked the bully if he was scared. And then the bully, didn't he deliver a low blow? Didn't Brock deliver? So Brock Lesnar, a man who's 3 times the size of Ricochet, had to resort to using a cheap shot to nullify this, geek who, who's standing up to the bully. So I would argue that I think coming out of this, Ricochet actually gained something, because before he was the nerd. He was the nerd who wouldn't even approach the bully, but now he can at least do that. And in fact, the bully had to resort to dirty tactics to nullify him. So I hope this segment, no matter what happens at the Rumble, I hope it leads to a match, because I think these two could potentially be a perfect match stylistically.
I think you could see the match. They do have, we are expecting a card in Saudi Arabia at the end of February, and Brock is typically on all of those cards. That's where I could see something like this happening, because I definitely do not see this as Lesnar's WrestleMania match.
No, I don't either.
So, so going into the Rumble, who do you think makes sense? The Rumble is built around Lesnar. Lesnar is the storyline of the Rumble. So who to you stands out as the person that should eliminate him, or do you see some other scenario for Lesnar on Sunday?
Well, right now I think Ricochet makes sense for sure. Trying to think who else. I mean, Rey Mysterio, if he's not involved with anything, but then could they be going back to that match? Not sure. What's Kofi doing at the pay-per-view? Is he?
I think he's announced for the Rumble. I think he's in the Rumble.
That's a showdown that I think they at least owe the audience something. I'd love to see that. I think day by day, my desires and my theory of him winning the Royal Rumble is getting less, and challenging Brock Lesnar is getting less and less likely. But I think the moment itself, if these two have a face-off, and give Kofi something, please. That would certainly be a big moment within the Rumble itself.
Yeah, it seems like the big ones on Raw are Drew and Alistair Black. Those seem to be the two guys that they've really heated up. And yeah, I think that's the big draw for the Rumble, is seeing who eliminates Lesnar and who's paired with him for the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, Alistair Black could be good. I think no matter who Drew, to me, doesn't necessarily feel like he's in a position to get that elimination.
But I think he's getting pushed the hardest now, even above Black.
Yes.
He does feel like he is the priority at the moment. Pairing him with Randy, giving him this little countdown deal. He just seems to be the one that they're
countdown.
Honestly, that's the kind of stuff they come up with when they're, just add some shiny new toy to this guy's presentation.
Literally strapping the rocket, including the countdown.
Yeah. I would say that Drew certainly feels like the hardest pushed right now.
So, however, then again, he doesn't need to beat Brock Lesnar. You can give Brock Lesnar an elimination to somebody else if you're going to give Drew the win.
You could do both, but I think that it makes sense
Brock
that
has the title. You're right. Yeah,
that Brock getting eliminated. It's almost like you have two winners this year. It's the winner of the Rumble and the guy that eliminates Lesnar. That could set up two matches there, unless you do the one person eliminating Lesnar and winning the Rumble. But I think you could get a benefit out of both.
Yeah. And potentially you could do a Lesnar match either February or March.
Yeah, because you've got
the Rumble winner.
We've got this unannounced Saudi Arabia show, and then they've got Elimination Chamber, and then Mania. So that is your pathway to Mania. After this segment, Charlie interviewed Randy Orton. He was asked about Drew McIntyre being on par with him as a favorite in the Rumble, and he said Drew's a hell of a guy with a great chop, but he's not on par with me.
They're really putting over that chop? You know, like
yeah, they were like really attaching this to Drew. So, Miz already had dibs on the figure 4. So the chop, I guess, goes to Drew.
I guess so. But I would say this was more of a Walter-inspired chop than Ric Flair. I feel like, why not? He does them very well. He's got a very loud sound, very much Walter-like. So it's part of his repackaging, along with the countdown.
Was he the one that pinned Walter at the Survivor Series?
I believe so, yeah. The two of them actually had a bit of a chop off.
So he's learned the chop and taken it from Walter.
Stolen it from him.
So Orton and Drew McIntyre had a match. Orton was getting the better of him early, and then Drew drove him into the corner and attacked with strikes, surprising Randy. And then we worked in the chops. And as he's nailing him with chops, Randy poked him in the eyes. There's a draping DDT. He calls for the RKO, but it stopped the Glasgow kiss. And then 3, 2, 1. And he goes for the Claymore, and Orton counters with a power slam for a 2 count. And then as Randy goes for the superplex, he falls to the floor as the OC run in, attacking Drew McIntyre. No bell rings. AJ clips.
The timekeeper was taken out.
That's right. The timekeeper had been taken out by a Claymore kick that missed Randy, and that set up a commercial break. So
I guess if the timekeeper is taken out, there's nobody who can assume the role.
This was a specific skill set that belonged to one individual on this show, and he was taken out.
Yeah, you have to probably like go to like timekeeper school for like 7 years, get a doctorate in bell ringing.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic that the countdown guy took out the timekeeper.
He wants to be the only person who can count.
So the OC, they destroy Drew, and then Orton comes back with a chair, and he helps fight them off. Claymore kick is hit to Carl Anderson, and then Gallows is hit with a chair, and then Orton and Drew are left alone, and Orton hits him with the RKO. Drew gets the mic, and he says into the mic, "Randall Keith Orton," and then says, "Give me a mic that works," and he slams down this microphone that we all could hear him very audibly. I found that very, very entertaining.
So we could hear it on TV, but not live,
I guess, yes. So he then is given back a microphone and says he should have taken him out with the Claymore. It won't happen again. He prays that they are in the ring this Sunday at the Rumble because he will kick Randy's head off of his shoulders, win the Rumble, and main event WrestleMania. He did this all as he was desperately gasping for breath. It was a very, very painful delivery. But that was our...
just RKO'd.
I guess, does that affect your windpipe? I guess you are coming down in the throat region.
Yeah. He's tired, too.
Maybe the wind was just knocked out of him.
That, too. I definitely thought it was a surprising match to make, considering both men are coming off of fresh babyface turns. And in fact, I mean, they seem to be positioning Drew very much like another Randy Orton with his own out-of-nowhere move. So, but, as a result, I kind of expected a non-finish here. So I think you're left asking whether or not the segment was productive for anybody and whether it was worth doing or not. And I actually think it was, despite the finish. I think the match I thought was actually really good for a WWE style match. They set up a stalemate really well between the two at the beginning. And then the rest of it was like really hard hitting, but with little wasted movement. Drew's chops continue to be a standard of his new game. And seeing Randy Orton take this amount of like physical punishment with his chest beat right afterwards, to me felt like it was like almost waking up Randy Orton out of his usual, very formulaic, lackadaisical style a bit. So I thought this was a good looking Randy Orton babyface match too. And I think the post-match was good. The post-match put the focus back on Drew, setting up his intentions of delivering that receipt to Randy Orton and winning the Rumble. So I actually thought this was productive.
Do you see Drew as a potential winner of the Rumble?
For sure. Almost a little too telegraphed right now, though, don't you think?
Yeah, they've made it heavy, and he could be put in the Lesnar role, but doesn't win. With the winner, they can really go several directions between Raw and SmackDown. But he's certainly one of the guys they've isolated.
Yeah, I do find it harder to predict this year.
Charlie's with Charlotte Flair, and she talked about eliminating the most women last year in the Rumble and was the second to last in. And She got eliminated by someone who wasn't even scheduled to be in the match, and Becky Lynch appears here, but then just walks away, and it was just a quick promo from Charlotte, and this was our only involvement from Charlotte in the entire show.
I thought this promo, like, it was one of those, like, bad scripted promos where somebody talks for a long time and says absolutely nothing. Like, what did she say here? I'm confident. I'm always prepared.
Yep. This was a...
breaking news, everybody.
Yes. She got to the building probably around noon for this.
Yeah.
And this is what she prepared all week for. Becky's in the ring. She said that Asuka did her a favor last week because after being blinded by the mist, she can see clearly now. The rain is gone. Maybe Asuka is the one who should be doubting herself, and maybe that explains the sneak attacks and the fact that she's facing Kyrie Sane tonight instead of her. And says she lost to Asuka last year, but who won in the end? I've been around the world as the man, and you've been on YouTube making soup.
I thought it was really funny. As somebody who was a fan of Asuka's YouTube channel, which, by the way, you can also see her make rice. You can see her play video games as well. Have you checked it out?
I haven't, no. I would be interested in watching Asuka make soup.
It is weirdly, like, fascinating. So, you know, you compare a promo like this to what Charlotte just did backstage, and I thought this was so much better from Becky. You know, Becky had a point here. Becky now thinks Asuka is the one who's actually doubting herself, and not Becky, who feels like she was doubting herself the entire time. Plus, it made me laugh with the soup line. So, all in the same amount of time it took Charlotte to say absolutely nothing, like, Becky just entertained me and also had a point.
So Becky and Kyrie Sane. Kyrie just came back over the weekend. It was her first match since the injury she sustained at TLC. So right. Back here, and Asuka attacks Becky with Kyrie's umbrella in the left knee. So that sets up our commercial. And when we come back, Asuka's just seated on the turnbuckle for the rest of this match.
It was nice of the ref to allow this, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was very accommodating. Never explained why she was there. She just was. So she just occupied a corner of the ring. Becky made her comeback and then missed in the corner, took a forearm off the top from Sane, but then she returned with an inverted DDT and a leg drop for a 2 count. Goes for the disarmer, but Sane gets out, and there's this elevated DDT by Kyrie for a 2 count. Becky then takes back control, nails Asuka off the turnbuckle, and hits the Bexploder, spin kick, disarmer, and submits Sane in 9 minutes. But then gets jumped by Asuka, who applies the Asuka lock, and that ends the segment, setting us into the Rumble on Sunday.
I thought a pretty average match, considering, I think, the usual standard of both women. Not that impressive to me, but the booking was very textbook and totally makes sense. Becky beats Asuka's partner, and Asuka beats her down afterwards. I think the storytelling overall has been good for this match, and it's really all come from Becky Lynch's storytelling performances. Really, Asuka has done a good job as well in, I think, her limited role of just kind of being this, you know, very dominant force. But it's really been Becky that's been doing the heavy lifting here, talking about her mental struggles and showing a great deal of, I think, you know, what do you call it?
Yeah, just trying to overcome this obstacle, this mental hurdle. Like, she is
vulnerability. Vulnerability is what I meant to say.
Yeah,
for a hero. So, yeah.
So this was. I almost feel like Becky was like, it almost seemed like too much of a departure from kind of the tone of the promos leading up to this, which I've kind of enjoyed. And I think that it will make the win feel that much more important for Becky, because it has been the struggle to beat Asuka, and it's been, this loss that's hung over her for a year, and that she comes out of it that much stronger when she finally gets this big win. And it means a whole lot more than simply just a match to just have a place at the Rumble.
I think, like, now that now that this was the go-home show, it was time for Becky to regain that confidence, which I think she explained here, that after being misted, she could see that it's actually Asuka that's just as in much doubt as Becky has been this whole time. So I feel like she took us on like a pretty good arc, I would say, over the past several weeks.
Then they aired the Rocky Johnson tribute video with Jerry Lawler mentioning their 1976 program in Memphis. And after that, Sarah Schreiber catches up with Asuka and Kyrie Sane. And Sarah Schreiber asks Asuka, is this the type of champion you want to be? Someone that needs others to help? And then, in a line for the ages, someone that uses toxins as an advantage? Dude, I was so ready for Asuka to just stare at this woman and missed her right in the face. I thought they missed a golden opportunity for Schreiber to just get misted here from Asuka. What a stupid premise for this setup. Someone that uses toxins as an advantage. Who comes up with this?
Clearly not somebody who's ever done a real interview in their whole lives, whoever's writing these questions. I thought they were terrible today. I mean, they're almost always bad, like whatever Charlie and Sarah have to say. But God,
unless this is Gary Hart explaining the dangerous toxins that the kabuki, great kabuki, can conjure up in his intestines, I don't know how this could possibly work.
I thought all the interviews were just scripted so unrealistically, and like, God, at the end of this one too, Sarah just has this look into the distance. You know how they like have to like freeze, almost like they have to play like musical chairs at the end of all of these. They just have to freeze, or not, like whatever. They have to stop. And then as they fade away, Sarah just like delivers this look into the distance with the deadest pair of eyes you'll ever see on a living being.
Maybe she inhaled some of these toxins that were not visible.
Oh, she was paralyzed.
She was high. The Viking Raiders defended the tag titles against Rollins and Buddy Christ. AOP, Joe, and Owens are all out in the corners. Murphy wants to start the match, so he hugs Rollins. Eric then nails him with this flying knee and slams Ivar on top of him. Joe and Owens get into it with AOP. Everyone brawls, and when we come back from break, they've been ejected. So then Murphy gets into his Ibushi stretch with a Kamagoye, or as Vic Joseph calls it, oh, what a knee from Murphy. Frog Splash is delivered by Seth Rollins for a 2 count. Then Eric hits his own knee. There were like 10,000 knee strikes in this match. The Viking Experience gets stopped by Seth Rollins. Both are sent to the floor, and the Viking Raiders hit suicide dives together. Then they stop Ivar in the corner. Cheeky Nando's kick, double team power bomb, and then it's Ivar with the handspring double back elbow to both men. Eric comes in, and they powerbomb Murphy. Ivar then climbs up the turnbuckle. Rollins shoves him, and he lands back first onto the edge of the apron. His spine just implodes, and he's dead. Flying knee from Murphy, delivered to Eric, who is draped on the bottom rope. Rollins hits the stomp, and then Murphy pins Eric. So we have new Raw Tag Team Champions, Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy.
Rollins hit the stomp on the apron.
On the apron, yes.
Yeah.
So that means death.
Yes.
So the Viking Raiders are no more.
I thought a really good match between these two teams. You know, wonderful finishing sequence, great finish. Like, this was an actual curb stomp, okay, if this was, like, on the apron. But I'm certainly disappointed for the Viking Raiders, who, in my opinion, have really not established a whole lot in this tag title run. But it almost just seems like par for the course for this, like, WWE Tag Team Title Championship. You know, they're typically put on a real tag team, but because the division itself doesn't get any sort of airtime seriously, the belts and the teams just kind of linger in this, like, I don't know, very neutral plane until when a singles main event program calls for a device like a tag team titles. They take them from the tag champions who were really just keeping the belts warm. Do you realize, like, Seth Rollins, how often he's been put in this position? Do you realize that Seth Rollins has won the tag titles with a new partner for the past 4 years? Okay, in 2017, he won them with Ambrose, held it for only about 2 months. But that was an eternity compared to the rest of his reigns, because in 2017, he held them with Jason Jordan for 1 month, Ambrose again for 2 weeks, 2019 with Strowman for 1 month, and now in 2020 with Buddy Murphy. So Seth Rollins is a 6-time tag team champion with 5 different people. And I can only expect this Buddy Murphy reign to maybe last, I'm hoping, at least more than 2 weeks.
Well, I think he needs to win it with like 2 more partners, and then we could have the Disciples.
The Disciples?
Yeah, he could have his own Disciples.
Oh, okay. Because there are 8 disciples.
7.
7 disciples, sorry. You're going to have to educate me on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I guess he has one to spare because one of them probably isn't coming back anytime soon.
Probably not, no. But all that said, I'm actually looking forward to a lot more matches with Rollins and Murphy. Like, they're a team I had no idea I wanted. Their styles complement.
They had a lot of good chemistry for two guys that have never teamed up together before.
They're like two of the fastest, I think, most precise guys you have on that roster, both with like really cool looking, very Japanese inspired moves. So I'm sure these two are like gathered around playing Fire Pro or like, I don't know, like reading Weekly Gong or something all the time. Like they're almost like, if Rollins wasn't so hated, like they'd be a great modern babyface tag team that would fit perfectly in like an AEW tag team division or New Japan or PWG tag team division.
Yeah, I'm very interested of where Seth Rollins lands at Mania this year. Like what is his program for WrestleMania this year?
So you don't think he'll be holding the tag team belts till then?
Probably not. That would be my guess. I would be stunned if we're getting Rollins and Murphy defending these Raw tag titles at WrestleMania, but who knows? Like, do they hold off on Rollins with Joe or Owens until then? I can't imagine that they're going to extend this for that period of time. I would love to see. I would love to see Rollins end up with Rey by the end of this whole thing.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah.
Think of the outfits, the outfit war between those two at WrestleMania.
Yeah, both of them like typically do pop culture references. So maybe this year, what would it be?
Rey would have to be
the Irishman.
Yeah, I'm just picturing him as like playing Al Pacino's character.
Yeah.
That would be as Jimmy Hoffa, Ray Hoffa. I don't know what.
I don't know.
Do we have any like big movies coming out in the next month or so?
I mean, Marvel really was kind of like, it peaked last year. Everybody was like cosplaying as that. This the Star Wars, not really the time for that. Maybe it'd be The Watchmen.
Maybe he can go as a movie I saw over the weekend.
Ray will definitely dress up as Baby Yoda. I feel. I think
okay, that
Yoda.
actually would be great. Yes,
I'm joking.
Yeah,
you should.
Baby, no. That's
Shorty G's role.
Shorty Yoda.
Shorty Y.
Shorty Y. The movie I saw over the weekend was that film Knives Out. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have. In fact, I haven't seen it, but I've been actually meaning to make my way through all the Oscar noms.
100% go and watch this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I highly recommend Parasite.
I'm going to see Parasite.
Yeah, that was very good. This was not nominated, but I highly recommend The Farewell. That was a personal favorite of mine. But what else?
I read the description. That looks way too depressing.
It's actually not. It's actually a lot more comedic than you would expect. But anyway, who do you think's winning Best Picture? Let's detour. Why not for a little bit more? So we got Ford versus Ferrari. We got The Irishman. We got Jojo Rabbit, which I watched this weekend. It was I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
The Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, which I don't know if you've seen yet on Netflix.
Haven't. No.
Very good too, but can be a little depressing as well. But very well performed. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, 1917, and Parasite.
I've seen quite a few of these. I've seen like half. I think I just feel Parasite is going to like clean up this year. That feels like it is like the hot movie this year that is going to perform best with the Academy. Of the movies I have seen, I really enjoyed The Irishman more than most people did. I know a lot didn't enjoy the length, but I would not say it was the best picture. Of those,
I think
Ford versus Ferrari. I am planning to see that very soon. So
right.
I will. I've heard that's very good. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't see that winning Best Picture.
I feel like they'll give Parasite Best International Feature or Picture or whatever. I wonder if Joker really has a chance. Like, it's got the most nominations, but
I can see Joaquin Phoenix winning Best Actor.
Right.
I don't know who he's up against. He is nominated, I assume.
Yes.
I'm not up on my nominations at all. I mean, he's outstanding in it. I think that it's more so his performance than the actual movie itself that I think was the big takeaway.
True. Okay.
There you go. That's our handicapping. I need to see more of these. I can't really.
Scarlett Johansson's nominated for Best Supporting and Best Actress.
For Endgame?
No, not for Endgame. No, for Marriage Story and Best Actress, and also Best Supporting was Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I haven't seen it.
As well, Florence Pugh, who played Paige in the
that's right. She's in Little Women, and wasn't she in something else as well? Or is it just Little Women?
This year, I think it's just Little Women, but she's in Black Widow coming up.
Right. Okay. So we go back to our Razzie nominees, the Street Profits, for the Monday after the weekend update, which is back. It's not only back, Way, they designed a logo for this fucking segment. So we're getting plenty of these.
It's here to stay.
Man, when you have graphical elements, that means you're committed to it. So here they are. Montez Ford looks like he's on the lowest setting on his chair that he needs to adjust. He looks way too far down against this desk.
Yeah, wow.
He's just way too low. He needs like a booster seat or something.
Something I think you and I sometimes have issue with on the Hangout.
We do, yes. Well, you got to be aware of it.
It's details, yeah.
Okay, so I don't even know how to recap this. Brock Lesnar has entered number 1 in the Royal Rumble. Paul Heyman is entering number 1 in St. Elmo's shrimp eating contest. Because he's fat, everyone, and he eats a lot of food.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it is.
Shrimp eating contest.
I looked it up.
Yeah, and also the punchline, really, though, John, was the fact that when Paul Heyman's done, shrimp will be extinct.
Yeah, that fat ass Paul. Dawkins is sick of reboots like Party of Five and Lizzie McGuire. Meanwhile, WWE has 7 hours of programming, and that's 7 hours of new content every week as they show a picture of Miz and Morrison.
Yeah, which Ford points out, hey, maybe we should change that graphic. Okay, listen, I thought for all the stuff that they've done as part of these segments and a lot of their promos, this was actually pretty clever. Like, this was probably the Joaquin Phoenix, okay, of Street Profits promos as of late.
Yeah, when the Emmy nominations come by, I can't wait for Angela Dawkins to get that nomination. Then they had their Royal Rumble correspondent, R-Truth, who started talking about Houston. And they explained, we don't want you to talk about Houston. We just want you to talk from Houston. And he's entering the Royal Rumble at number 420 because he's high. Then they played a montage of Otis with Val Venus's old theme song for Mandy Rose. And that was the Monday after the weekend update. I'll be nice, and I'll say this was certainly better than their first version of this, but that only makes it terrible instead of god-awful.
Yeah, I would say they're over 2 with these. It's so bad. It's like it's the type of amateur comedy set somebody would go to just to see people bomb. Like if you're somebody who gets a great deal of pleasure from seeing people suffer, I think this might be for you.
Yeah, it's just very sad with the Street Profits, who had such a natural, organic, cool factor about them, that they have just done a number on to just leave absolutely none of it left in these two. Yeah.
Compared to, I think, their other, I guess, more their NXT content, like, well, how much do we know that they aren't involved in this? Maybe maybe this was what they were working on over the past week.
Well,
Dawkins and Ford.
Maybe. Eric Rowan took on 1999 Matt Hardy, who is in phenomenal shape for 45.
I would say so, yeah. So what do you think about these rumors of him potentially being the leader of the Dark Order?
I'm always hesitant to just assume that someone is 100% leaving. If you're Matt Hardy, I would lean more towards him leaving than staying. That would be my assumption. But it's really hard to jump to that conclusion, knowing that the offers that a Matt Hardy is going to get, you're 45, and you may get an incredible deal, which is probably going to be the last contract of your career. And Do you want to take the risk and go elsewhere, or just take the sure thing, which is a tremendous financial offer to just stay here? So
yeah,
I think creatively you'll be very unfulfilled here, and he's a guy that's very creatively motivated. So that's what he's going to have to weigh. And if you look at his track record, he is someone that seems to lean more towards being creatively fulfilled than financially. But it's a very difficult decision to make when you have a family and you're staring at that offer on paper, and it's a real thing and not just this money being a concept.
Well, I would say, like, if there's any attempt to be made to try to entice him to stay, I don't know if putting him in a squash match with Eric Rowan would be, something I would be doing. So I don't know. I definitely kind of looked at this as maybe a sign of, hey, like, we're probably not going to do that much more with you.
Well, if he's looking at it that, Matt Hardy, from all accounts, is someone that, saved a lot. He lives very well. That, going to AEW, I'm going to be creatively fulfilled, and I'm still going to make good money no matter what I do. But now is the time. Like, he's got to make that decision of, like, where am I going to end my career? And WWE does have I will say, 2 weeks ago, WWE had the benefit of, I know this place will be here and I'll have whatever role I want after my in-ring career. Whereas AEW, it's like the jury's still out. Today, that's very different. AEW has a lot of security now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he has an interesting choice to make. Let me ask you this, though. If you're AEW, is Matt Hardy someone that you aggressively go after if you're, not trying to just break the bank for any available name that comes by? How important is Matt Hardy to you?
Yeah, not necessarily. I wouldn't say aggressively. I wouldn't be offering him the type of deal that I'd be offering, somebody like Jon Moxley or even Chris Jericho. I don't think Matt Hardy at this point is that level of a difference maker. But even maybe somebody on the level of, let's say, a Dustin Rhodes. I think you can, because you can tell that he is so creatively frustrated. I feel like Matt Hardy, even for a much lesser offer than some of the higher end people that they're being paid, that AEW is paying, I think he would. Personally, I feel like he would take it. I think he seems like somebody who values creativity a bit more than money, and I think I would go after him at a reasonable level. Not if his demands are that, hey, I want to be paid the same as your top stars, I would probably leave at that point. But I don't think he would. I don't think he necessarily. I don't know. I can't really say. But if I was AEW, I would go after him. I would be respectful, of course, but I also wouldn't offer him top money. No, certainly not.
Yeah, but you could offer him, certainly the creative freedom to. No, well, a lot more than he has through this go around and what went on with, like, the Woken character, but
coaching role,
a coaching role, which I think he'd be tremendous in, similar to a Dustin Rhodes. Like, could you imagine this guy just having a program with a Sammy Guevara or, numerous guys that could benefit greatly from working with a Matt Hardy? And Matt Hardy, he's a guy that if you hire, there are numerous jobs that he could fulfill beyond just in ring.
And really, come on, I can't. It's hard for me to think of, like, many other ways to save this Dark Order thing.
Well, I'm not dying to see him be that leader in that role, but it certainly needs something at this point. And I guess Matt Hardy would be as good a choice as any to be revealed as this leader. Back to this match. Okay, I don't know what the fuck happened here. So Rowan opens up his cage, reaches in, and whatever's in here bites his hand, and he starts bleeding. Now, that part's amusing, but the part that was hysterical was that referee Derek Moore put on the latex gloves that he would for a guy that's been unintentionally opened up. Because his hand has like a mock blood on it from this creature that has bit him, and I just found that priceless. He won in 2 minutes and 12 seconds, beating Matt.
Well, you got to sell the blood as if it's real, and that's what they did here.
This thing, the only thing this angle didn't have was time, because this should have made some of our worst of lists, and it just didn't have enough time to. But it's off to a roaring start in 2020.
I don't think it would have won, though. Like, what won last year for worst gimmick? Like,
Shorty G.
Yeah, this wasn't beating Shorty G. It's not beating, Mike Kanellis. But it definitely
it's on the road too. It's on the road. Give this thing time. This thing has to culminate with something, and it has all the makings of being horrendous.
It's true. If that landing is very disappointing, it definitely could put this in contention. So I've been curious to see how they would evolve this mystery bag thing. But I think this biting gimmick is really stupid. Like, even a dog knows not to do something again if it feels pain. And so this is the second week Eric Rowan has willingly put his hand into his cage and drew blood in his own hand. So Eric Rowan is dumber than a dog. That's all they're really proving with these matches thus far.
Is this maybe their subtle commentary of Luke Harper? That whatever's in this cage it's biting the hand that fed it?
I think that's way too deep for a show that also has
if this thing is named like Lucas contest or something or Brody, then I think we can read into this a bit more.
I would say that's a lot of work for not much of a payoff. Pretty petty payoff, honestly.
Oh, more Sarah Schreiber. She's with Owens and Joe. They will eventually take care of Rollins and Buddy Murphy. There's a lot of things that eventually are going to be taken care of. Big Show eventually take care of them, and now they'll eventually take care of the tag champions.
They have a big to-do list.
A lot to set up. New Year's resolutions. Owens has nothing in common with them, but he does now because Rollins and Murphy are in the Royal Rumble, and so is he, and then Joe adds his name as well. Joe says that when it comes to Rollins, he'll always stand by Owens' side, but in the Royal Rumble, if you stand in my way, I'll go right through you. So we have more names for the Rumble. Charlie is with Mojo Rawley, who I was amazed kept this title for an entire week. And he said that in the past, this title has been held by cowards who run at the threat of danger. So the idea is that Mojo is not afraid of any of these geeks coming after him. And the Sings try to outsmart him, and they get destroyed.
So they're going ahead with Mojo Rawley as a serious 24/7 champion.
Yeah.
Like, he's the guy who doesn't fall for the schoolboy attempts. He's an actual, like, he's the Brock Lesnar of the 24/7 division. So
maybe this dude's winning the Rumble.
So he could challenge for what? He's already got the top prize in the industry.
The unification match at WrestleMania.
Oh, the 24/7 Universal WWE Champion. Yeah, for sure. I'll just say, like, they have a long way to go if they're trying to get people to take this 24/7 title a bit more seriously, but it's certainly an improvement for Mojo.
And then Lashley and Lana came out. I totally forgot about this match. I was like, what are we finishing Raw with? And then I remembered this mixed tag that they did not, I don't think they mentioned this at all during the show.
Yeah, maybe aside from a graphic, like they didn't.
It's almost like they didn't want to remind you that this is at the end of the show.
Well, it's almost as if like this wasn't the main event, and that it was just like, I don't know, a bonus match at the end, and the real main event was Murphy and Rollins.
This felt like the weakest thing on the show, even though I guess you could cherry pick things like Eric Rowan's creature biting him.
Oh, this was worse.
Lashley and Lana come out. Lana says that Rusev Day is canceled, so they chant Rusev Day. She cuts a promo on the fans being low rent, bottom feeding losers that are jealous of their love, and all she wants is a thank you. She's Chris Jericho now. And she tries to start a thank you, Bobby, thank you, Lana chant. Thankfully, Rusev and Liv Morgan came out. We got a match. Lana called herself the best wrestler in the world and then hit this head kick on Liv for a 2 count. They traded slaps. Then the men come in, which was highlighted by Rusev yelling, "Come on, Bob." Lana then stopped Rusev. Lashley nearly ran into Lana. There's a kick out. Lana hits Rusev. Lashley then has him beat, but Liv Morgan makes the save. Yes, Liv Morgan stops Bobby Lashley from finishing a pinfall. Then she takes out Lashley with a step-up enziguri. Rusev hit a head kick. Machka kick gets stopped when Lana grabs his foot and sets up the spear. Lashley pins Rusev in all of 3 minutes and 27 seconds. And Vic Joseph says, King, can you imagine what Lana will be saying on social media? That is your doom that comes out of this finality.
That's the go-home line for the Royal Rumble?
Can you imagine what Lana will be saying on social media?
Yeah. This really didn't feel like it was the main event of the show. Like, I thought it was actually the weakest match on the show, even at, 377? So that's not even a real time.
This program is so over at this point. Like, even I think the most, anyone that got some charm out of this angle because of the over-the-topness, you don't even get that anymore. It's not even unintentional comedy. It's just, this thing has just definitely hit its expiration date.
I don't disagree at all. I mean, but then I would have said after week 1 this thing hit its expiration date, and look how far they've dragged it. I will say I think it's very noticeable how little interest the audience has in actually seeing a wrestling match come out of this program. Like between the Lashley Rusev match that took place before to like anytime it's in ring, it's the worst part of this program. And I feel like people are just there for the trashy, train wreck Jerry Springer talking segments. Those are the main draw. Like those are potentially main event worthy. It's the matches that just.
Well, and you've kind of run the gamut. You've done the divorce. You've done the wedding. Yeah, how much more do we have left?
You could do a real pregnancy. I say real because the last one was supposed to be fake. Sure, you can find more lovers from their past. You could do parents. There are lots of ways to go.
Yeah, I think we're done at this point. I don't think that Lana has certainly been given a lot more speaking roles. I think she definitely has more of a presence now on the show. I don't think this angle's done anything for Lashley. Rusev has been able to make it work for him, but I feel he's in the exact same spot he was before this. Like, he was always kind of this goofy, fun babyface. Like, that's what he had moved into that role, and this seems to have just reinforced that same role. Like, he hasn't improved his standing in any way.
He's also just kept losing.
He's a mid-card babyface, and he was one coming in, and he's one coming out of this program. So I think it's been good for Lana. I don't think she's been great in this role, but they certainly see a lot in her. It's a role for Liv Morgan. But Lashley and Rusev, I feel they're in the exact same spots they were at the beginning of this. So I can't even say this has greatly enhanced their standing.
I think it's been a really disappointing role for Liv. And I feel like 3 weeks in, I feel like I could say that now because I had high hopes coming out of those segments where she was talking about revealing her true self. She could now finally be who she really wants to be. And this is who you really want to be, like an accessory to Rusev in this like terrible storyline.
Well, do you think that they got backlash or got scared off of going the lesbian direction that they were clearly hinting at in the wedding?
Perhaps, yeah. And if that was the intent of who she really wanted to be, I would say that might have been even worse. Because, I
think that would have upset a lot of people if they went that way.
It's not like the portrayal. Like, she's supposed to be a babyface. And I think the portrayal of whatever same-sex relationship that they were trying to create was really not a positive one at all. It was like one made for a punchline. So I don't know what the direction is for her right now. I will say she does, look somewhat improved in ring from what little we saw of her. But in terms of character, in terms of storyline, I think this is a bad way to come back.
It was kept short, at least. Like, could you have imagined this getting 2 segments at the end of the night?
Yeah.
There was no way. So they at least were smart to keep this to 3.5 minutes. And that was the end of Raw. I thought the weakest stuff they saved for the end of the show, like with the Rowan stuff that I'm just so done with, and then this main event thing. But overall, I thought this was a very good episode of Raw, throwing out the some of the third hour.
I thought it was pretty watchable tonight, and I think the break has really made me start to understand what I actually consider good versus what I find tolerable. And I say that because if I had my open Monday, I don't think I would choose to sit down to watch this. But because I sort of have an obligation to do it, my barometer these days is almost like, can I get through this show without completely just wanting to die? And I was far from that.
Jesus Christ! What a ratings scale.
But that's reality, right? You know, like otherwise, what are we trying to judge here? We're grading the show on a curve if we're trying to say a show is good that we would otherwise have no reason or desire to watch, right? But this was okay. If I have to say, like, amongst all the Raws that have taken place over the past year, this was perhaps one of the better ones. I found it watchable. I was even entertained for much of it. Great Andrade Rey match. Great Rollins Murphy and Raiders tag match. I even enjoyed the stuff with Drew and Orton. There's nothing that offensive about it, nor did it drag. But I can't necessarily say this was good. This was a good TV show or a great TV show because it was just so long.
This was a very good 1 hour show. It was I'll say good 2 hour show, and
Sure.
it still becomes a chore at 3 hours. And I think that's the best of weeks. But I think overall, the last couple of weeks, I think Raw has been significantly improved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we are coming up on 2 hours. So let us get to this feedback quickly.
Ratings
tonight's,
as we complain about. Anyway, yes.
Yeah. Well, we are, we're all killer
We're
on this
special,
show.
okay? You need more of us.
5.48 is what the forum gave this show, so I think a little less inclined to give a thumbs up on Raw. Brandon from Oshawa, I really thought this was a great show up until the Street Profits. Oh, yeah, the Street Profits, that was terrible, too. When the show dropped considerably from there. Man, there was a lot of shit in this third hour.
Yeah, maybe they knew people weren't going to watch anyway.
Joe Owens and the Viking Raiders should stick together as a team. I need a stable war. We haven't had one on the main roster in too long. As much as the cuck angle sucked, I thought they did a good job of getting Rusev hot again, but now he looks like a joke and lost 3 times to Lashley. Is this pretty much confirmation that he's leaving? I know they suck at booking baby faces, but they can't be this inept, can they?
We got Andrew from Cape Breton who says, I remember years ago, Lance Storm did an interview and he talked about how he and Regal were supposed to go over the hot baby faces Booker T and Goldust for the tag title, and Storm asked about if they could throw the baby faces a bone. I wish they did that with Rusev. I know 50-50 booking isn't the best, but at a certain point the matches need to end if you're going to just beat a babyface into powder, especially considering the storyline. I get it. Rusev is a loser. Can we just move on? Matt Hardy's career in WWE seems to also have gone full circle with him starting out jobbing and ending it jobbing. One positive, though, is in today's wrestling scene, this just gives Matt sympathy before he leaves for his next destination. Anyway, a decent show overall. 5 out of 10. That's what I mean, like... Is 5 out of 10 really a decent now?
It gets you the pass.
Okay.
Paul from New Jersey. Very solid edition of Raw. Up until the Weekend Update skit. Rollins is flourishing as a heel again, and I'm glad Buddy Murphy wasn't discarded right after the Alistair Black feud. Pretty solid ladder match, and I like what they did with Orton and McIntyre. I just can't understand for the life of me what they're doing with the Street Profits. If you stopped watching the show at 10:30, there was little to complain about. So I did. Why watch the main event cuck angle if you're not getting paid for it? Question, do the ratings increase whenever Lesnar is announced for TV? No, not really. Number 2, is it just me or did Ricochet sound better on the microphone tonight? Perhaps he heard Post Wrestling's Worst of 2019 show. He did sound better tonight. I'm going to give him that.
Yes, he did. Alexander from Portland says, I strongly dislike the finish to Andrade and Rey. I can't recall the last match Andrade had that Zelina didn't interfere in. Having Zelina constantly interfere in matches builds heat, but for me, it's turned into go-away heat as opposed to effective heel heat. No matter how good Andrade is in the ring, I find it so hard to get into his matches when there's interference in like 90% of them. Secondly, wooden ladders have jumped the shark. Wooden ladders? What?
Well, when they do the broken ladder spot, it's
wood?
They gimmick. I don't know what they're using, but they're obviously gimmick ladders.
It's metal.
I don't know if they're wood.
Was it made of wood? It didn't shatter like wood.
I don't know what it is they use, but it's not like a legit ladder that they're literally breaking as these guys go through it. Like they're certainly gimmicked up.
Negativity aside, it's great to see Buddy Murphy winning a title on the main roster. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time we saw a former Cruiserweight champion win a title that wasn't the Cruiserweight Championship, right?
Sure.
Is it? I mean, if you don't include the 24/7.
Yeah, if you include the 24/7 title, Tozawa's won that. Did Neville win anything besides
NXT.
the Cruiserweight title?
Was Neville a
I mean, Buddy Murphy won an NXT tag title.
yeah. I'm trying to think who else.
Who are the
Enzo?
other Cruiserweight
No,
champions?
Enzo. Wasn't Enzo a tag champ? No, he wasn't.
I don't think so.
Wow. Okay, sure. It's a stat nobody cares about, but yeah. Please correct us if we're wrong.
Sam from Nebraska. This week's Raw was a weaker episode than last week's, which I felt was a solid show. And while I could go on about the awful Monday after weekend update and how that during the Martin Luther King video that the WWE would only show white police officers with people of color in the modern day footage as some real apparent political statements. But I digress. What was up with the WWE adding some digital green mist to the replay of Asuka and Becky from last week? It looked awful and was just garbage. I didn't notice that at all. I wasn't paying close attention if they added digital green mist to the replay.
I did not pay attention either. Yeah.
That sounds kind of cool. I want to see that now.
Digital Mist. Yeah. It sounds like an EDM group. Digital Mist. Sounds like an EDM festival, really. All right. Brandon from New Jersey says, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. It is I. Brandon, been a minute since we spoke? What's new? Anywho, it's been so long I've forgotten how to do this, so bear with me. I've been missed, and for that I am back. How about them blizzards in Newfoundland? My God, huh? Did they invest in shovels? That's a workout, eh? I'm stalling, so here goes. But man, this show was good for the first few hours. Then, like a wet fart in the wind, the show turned for the worse. Andrade and Rey fighting for those coveted DVR ratings points was a joy to watch, so the new Rockers, Buddy and Seth winning the straps, was fun stuff. Meanderings, Way, how are you? Good. John, who was the next for McGregor now that he is back? Those shoulder strikes were mad intense, you feel me? I think Masvidal bodies him, and Usman beats him on the ground. Plus, he has Mayweather, Connor roads are paved in gold. Also, is Pettis headed to Bellator to fight his brother, or just headed to Bellator? Bellator or Bellator?
Yeah. Thank you, Brandon. We always appreciate your questions and observations about the world at large. If I had to pick the fight I want to see most, it is the Masvidal fight. I think it's really an intriguing fight. I don't know if I would pick Conor in that fight. I would likely lean Masvidal, but I think that would be both the most entertaining fight, and also you would get a great build up for it. And I think it's
you put the BMF on the line.
Yeah, you would have that on the line, and it is a winnable fight for Conor McGregor. Absolutely. Usman, I would say that would be McGregor would be at a distinct disadvantage in that fight, and I see that as like the least likely scenario out of all of these. Nurmagomedov is not. I don't see that fight ending much different than the first fight did. So it would be big, but to me, Masvidal is kind of where I lean, unless they go with something else at lightweight. Next up, we have, let's go here to Guy from Charlotte, North Carolina. There was more good than bad this week, but as usual, the bad was quite bad. For all that good, that was the opening segment and the Brock stuff. There was the positively awful Street Profits update and the never-ending eye roll that is the Rusev Lana saga. Honestly, the show's saving grace was the ladder match. Granted, it was a little sloppy in places, but they managed to make me care and delivered with some very good in-ring action. I'm looking forward to the Rumble and hope it sets up some new things rolling into Mania season. 6 out of 10.
We got a Nick from Lansing who says, Ricochet was able to cut a halfway decent promo tonight. He felt a little more confident, and I even held out a soon-to-be-dashed hope that maybe he would be able to at least do one flip before Brock put him down. Hopefully, the two of them get a little time to work in the Rumble. Murphy and Rollins look great against the Raiders. The tag division is in desperate need of a glow-up, and I actually feel hopeful about the two of them as new champions. Unfortunately, the Viking Raiders weren't clicking. The company never seemed to know what to do with them, but maybe a team with more momentum can revitalize that division. Okay. I've run out of words, John, I think, on this show, but let's finish up here with Tess.
Okay, last one. Tess from Oklahoma City. I, like everyone else, it seems, was really enjoying this show until the last hour. I do wonder why you have Rollins and Murphy winning the tag titles instead of the actual tag team in AOP, but that's typical WWE booking. Good for Murphy, though, getting a main roster title. It's honestly so frustrating to me that WWE can have a super refreshing relationship storyline on SmackDown and the most cliche storyline on Raw. Why would Rusev ever associate with Liv Morgan again? Aside from the fact that she was also cheating with Lana, so she's really no better than Bobby. She cost him the last match.
That's so true. I didn't even realize that. Or were they talking about the relationship? Did they have a relation? No, because by the time
they didn't really flush that out of what was going on with Lana and Liv, and now it seems like they've dropped that cold. On a side note, it does seem that Liv has been working on her wrestling, and I thought she looked decent. I would much rather see her working with Charlotte, who is desperately in need of something to do. Also, do we know where Naomi is and when she comes back? She's in the Raw opening graphic, but one would think she would be with her husband on SmackDown. I had thought she was on SmackDown, but I could be mistaken. I would imagine that there doesn't appear to be any kind of injury, and I would expect that she'll be in the Rumble this Sunday.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah.
They've announced barely any women for that Rumble, so I think it's going to be all hands on deck to fill out those 30 entrances.
I was like kind of filling out my mock predictions on for the pool, and I had a really hard time thinking about what surprises there could potentially be for a women's battle royal. And by surprise, I'm saying people that aren't in NXT.
Yeah, I mean they've kind of over the last 2 years between the two Rumbles, Evolution, like they've brought so many women back from the past.
Yeah. I was trying to think of names and like who's actually still out there that they haven't used yet. Maybe like somebody like Jazz,
Victoria.
Has Ivory done stuff with them?
Ivory did she went into the Hall of Fame a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
but I don't think she did any wrestling. Did she during that the last 2 years?
Maybe she feel like she did. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, she could go in. I mean, there's names out there you could find. You just have to.
I think Shayna will be the big surprise, perhaps.
She should be,
if they consider that a surprise, which I don't. In the contest, it's not.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, you have gotten an expanded edition of Rewind to Raw tonight. Welcome back, Way. I hope we haven't burnt you out on night one of your return.
No, we're just getting started. I'm refreshed. Good to go.
All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye to everybody. Tuesday night, we're back. New Rewind Away for patrons. We'll be up chatting All Japan Women's Dream Slam 1 card. You can go up to the forum. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, you can get in your feedback and watch that card before Tuesday night. So that is when we will speak with you next. And then lots to come this week at postwrestling.com. So keep it tuned as we head into the Royal Rumble this Sunday. Good night.